Hello guys, this is Modest Major here, bringing you some commentary over some 21 and 2 BTB Ragnarok gameplay. This might come as a surprise to you guys. You know I don't like Ragnarok too much. You know I don't like BTB too much. When it comes to BTB, I feel like high-level play just becomes a battle of positioning and who can get top-middle control, and if you're retaining the power weapons, you're probably going to do quite well. And when it becomes to low-level players versus high-level players, the gulf is just too big. It's inordinately big, and it feels like there's no chance of a comeback at any point because the amount of vehicles and weapons you can equip yourself, especially if it's BTB Infinity, it just kind of frustrates me. When I get an insane win on CTF, I feel like I earn it a lot more than with BTB. BTB often feels about like the starting route and how strong you come out with. The momentum that you can gain in BTB is absolutely ridiculous. And to be honest, I feel like that's why some players didn't enjoy Halo. Like, when you look at Call of Duty, sorry, when I say Halo, I mean Halo 4. When you look at Call of Duty and you compare that to, you know, Halo, if you gain momentum in Call of Duty, it can often be a luck-based thing that gets you that momentum, and as a result, you know, that can be quite fun to people because it's like, well, even if I'm a terrible player, I can come in and if I somehow manage to gain momentum. In Modern Warfare 2, it was all about, oh, if you get a Predator missile, you could then get a Harrier, you could then get a Chopper Gunner. All a Predator missile needs is 5 kills, and that really isn't that hard to do, considering it's an insta-kill game where, you know, you put 2 bullets into someone, they can pretty much die, or a headshot, they're dead. You know, that's pretty easy to do. You could sit in a corner and you could wait for someone to come, and you could make that happen just by playing tactically or just concentrating a little bit harder than usual. In Halo, it's not that easy. In Halo, it's all about getting to top-middle control. If you have an insanely good teamwork, you will literally destroy people, and getting that opening route for Call of Duty players is a lot harder. So it was this awkward balance of where they weren't satisfying Call of Duty players 100% because they weren't giving it, you know, for free. They weren't giving it out to any player who could luckily get that momentum, but at the same time, they weren't bending over backwards for the competitive players. They were putting in a couple of elements that were trying to cater a tiny bit to COD. That sounds like a kind of old school conversation that we'd be having at the beginning of Halo 4, but I just thought I'd bring that up anyhow. But if you've been wondering why I haven't been uploading this last couple of days, I decided to go around a friend's house at university, and we played a lot of games this weekend, basically, and I didn't really get a chance to upload. That's why I'm using this BTB gameplay, because I just don't have enough on my hard drive as it is. Haven't been able to play this weekend, and we decided to play a bit of Halo. Unfortunately, my friends have been playing League of Legends mainly recently, so they weren't well practiced enough at Halo to make it enjoyable. So then we switched over to Super Smash Bros. Also, they haven't played that enough, so that got a little bit stale too quick. So they said, well, let us play FIFA. And if you guys didn't know, I kind of hate FIFA. I've never really, you know, enjoyed it too much. From a spectator's point of view, the fact that the games can go on so long and so little happens, you know, even in terms of real life soccer, I despise it. The fact that there's 90-minute games that go on and then it ends in a 0-0 draw. I'm used to watching Halo and playing Halo where games, you know, could go on for 10 minutes and there could be the equivalent of 100 goals that entire game versus 0-0 in football. That's always been what bothered me. I'm kind of a hyperactive guy, and I need, you know, I need something to chew on, is what I'd say. I need something to be watching the entire time and keep me engaged, or I'm just going to drift off and just fall asleep, basically. But I said, you know what, I'll play FIFA, I'll buy it. I haven't played it since FIFA 2013, maybe it's gotten better. So we decided to play a tournament, and it was actually quite a bit of fun. Mainly just because I'm, you know, become quite competitive recently, and I really just enjoy trying to beat my friends. I didn't actually manage to get any wins, though, because I hadn't played. I got a lot of draws and a lot of losses. But what surprised me is I didn't do as awful as I thought I might. Considering I haven't played for about 10 years, I thought I might be an absolute disgrace. And I feel like the reason for doing that is just because it's not a game that requires too many complex button presses. It's more about logic, decision making, committing to decisions at the right time, rather than, you know, outplaying people in every single situation. FIFA is definitely more of a, at least in the Xbox version, of course, because there's no athletic skill involved. It's more of just mind games, playing with people's perceptions and conditioning people into making mistakes. And it kind of translates into the topic that I wanted to talk about today, and that is regarding unpredictability in gaming. Unpredictability for me is what I feel like can separate the top tier of players from just below that top tier. The best players in the world have this edge of they know the formulas that they can invoke at any single time to grant them success. And this is why I want to say, if you want to be a gamer at a high level, you're going to have to be prepared to be some sort of a risk taker. When it comes to friendly custom games, you know, competitive customs just for practice, when it isn't one of our Halo 4 tournaments, or isn't a battle royale, or there isn't something on the line, I think a lot of players have this tendency to play by a very strict formula that they can rely on. They try to play cold and calculated. And although I feel like, you know, even for the majority of times it may grant them success, I don't feel like it will make them one of the top tier elite players. I think in order to be one of these top players, you have to be prepared to be taking some sort of risks. And I believe there's 3 reasons why taking risks can be a very good thing. The first of which is, I believe it gives you a chance to experiment, to be able to mix and match formulas, to find out formulas that you might not necessarily have stumbled across just by looking on the internet, or just by playing the same playstyle you've always been told to play. If you can play unpredictably on a regular basis, the better you will become at it, and the better you'll be getting at testing options and figuring out which ones need to be dropped and which ones need to be brought on in a competitive setting. And therefore you'll have more tools up your sleeve when you just need them, when you're in those high pressure situations and you need to call upon something that the other player isn't expecting. Especially if the enemy player is flustered. You know, you get these situations where option Z might not work if you're, say, top middle, and option C seems like the worst possible idea anytime top middle. However, that's only because you've been building up to option Z using option Y. What if this time you use option X? For example, there's so many situations where, you know, I'll be using a power weapon at top middle, and I'll think, right, well, this is a time not to push. But however, what if I push from this angle with this specific power weapon? Maybe that now becomes a viable option. And it's stuff like that that you've just got to figure out, and you've got to take those risks, and you've got to be willing to be punished for it. And, you know, the perfect time to do that is in friendly competitive customs. And that's where you see, right, you know, I'm okay, I'm happy to lose this time, I'm happy to lose a bit of a pride, because this means that I'll win better the next time, and that's really what matters in the grand scheme of things. Another thing is, I think it shows that you have confidence in your abilities. I think confidence is something that can, you know, put a lot of enemy players off. A lot of the competitive players that I meet on a regular basis, some of the better ones, they're always darn confident in their abilities. And, you know, being unpredictable means that you have the confidence in your abilities to say, I can take a couple of risks here and there that might not necessarily pay off, but I know that a couple of them will do darn good. I know a couple of them I'll be able to punish you so harshly and so severely that it will put fear into your heart, that you won't know what to do for the rest of the game, because I've just absolutely demoralized you. And confidence is such a big part in any competitive setting. If you are on the back foot, if you're feeling flustered, the second you have that moment of doubt, you've already lost the game. You're already terrified. Having those options and being able to say to myself, yeah, I'm willing to take this risk at that point. I know it could pay off, and I'm willing to take this one risk because this could be the big moment of the game. That's definitely something that can strike fear into your opponent, and I think it's definitely a worthy strategy. Last but not least, I believe the final fundamental aspect of, you know, improving your gameplay through using unpredictability, I believe that it can keep the enemy player on their toes at all time. In a competitive setting, the last thing you want to be doing is becoming predictable, because it means that they can just adjust to what you're doing at all times, and the enemy player is just going to have an easy time. He's going to be thinking, oh, so whenever I do this, then he's going to do that. That makes things a lot easier, because now I don't have to worry about it. That's one of the exciting things about competitive gaming, is that you can pretend to be predictable in a competitive setting. You can condition your opponent into thinking, oh, he would never take that option, he hasn't got the guts. Like, he's never going to push top middle at this specific instance because he knows it's too dangerous. And then you push it right when they're least expecting it. I believe on Dispatch, nobody expected anyone to rush bottom middle straight away because it was such a dangerous and bold strategy, and you were so vulnerable when doing it. And that started to become one of the top strategies of that map, because, you know, it just became so easy to be able to push that straight off the bat, and then you were suddenly safe if you managed to pull the push off. As I mentioned in previous videos, being unpredictable can be a good strategy, but sometimes you can lend yourself to being overly unpredictable, overly aggressive, and it just becomes a matter of, oh, well, he's probably gonna not be scared of making that stupid decision, so I'll just bait him into doing it. So you've got to a certain extent, You've got to be able to practice this at a regular basis. I'd say, you know, just the main takeaway from this video is, in customs, you shouldn't be afraid to do this. This is how you become a better player, by taking these risks in the pre-game so that you can apply all this knowledge that you've learned from customs and put them into a more competitive setting. Especially when Halo 5 rolls around and you've got all this background muscle memory and knowledge that you can apply in every single situation, the best possible option. So, you know, don't be afraid to mix and match. Don't be afraid to do something even though it could eventually lead to your loss. Because that's what these games are for. That's what these customs are for. They're for practice. They're not for destroying your friends every single game on a regular basis. You're not going to be the best if you're just being cold calculated and like a serial killer to your friends. You'll probably end up being a little bit hated as well. So anyway, I've been Modest Major. Hope you guys enjoyed the calm. Peace.